Hello everyone, a very warm welcome to all of you today. My name is Haziq and I am from Excel Academy. Today we have Dr. Gobi as he will be sharing how to excel collecting data from multiple tables using nested VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. If you have any question regarding this topic, do leave your message in the comment and Dr. Gobi will answer them right after his presentation. Okay, I pass this mic to Dr. Gobi.
Hello everyone, good morning. Good morning. How are you? Now I'm gonna take your 1 hour lunchtime to share with you something very important in VLOOKUP, right? So everyone has been using VLOOKUP, but do you know there is another one called HLOOKUP, right? Let's look at let me share my screen so that you can understand better. Just give me a minute. I'm sharing my screen now, and there you go. Okay. Right, now you can see my screen, right? Okay, right, so you can see my screen now. Okay, so I'll be turning to my second screen, right? Okay, now how Excel VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP works, right? Now, what is VLOOKUP? What is HLOOKUP? Before we go into combining multiple tables into our formula, we need to understand what is VLOOKUP and what is HLOOKUP, right? So the V stands for vertical, H stands for horizontal, right? Now, how this vertical and horizontal, when do we use and how do you determine which formula to use? It's depending on where you are taking your answers from. Okay, for example, for this table, I want to get these grades. I want to get these grades from this table. So if you look at this table, this is a vertical table. Vertical table meaning you use your columns as your headers, right? As your headers and your answers up to down, right? From up to down. For horizontal lookup, for HLOOKUP, we look at our table, the answer table, right, where we're going to take the answers from, okay? So this table is using the rows as the headers. So we're going to take it from left to right, okay? So once you already know where you're taking your answers from, then it will be easy for you to determine whether you need to use VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, right? Okay, now, how do we use VLOOKUP? Always remember, in VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, there are few things that you need to answer. One is, what is your lookup range? Okay. Now, if you put in the VLOOKUP formula here, right? So you see, you have lookup value, you have table array, column index number, and range lookup. Okay, so your lookup value, right? Lookup value means based on what in this table, okay? Based on what in this table, right? In this table, we are going to get these grades, right? So in this case, we're going to use the marks as our lookup value to get these grades from this table, right? So this is how we actually determine lookup value. So lookup value is from based on what you are getting your answers, right? And then we have range lookup. Okay, see, the second one is table array, and then column index number, right? So what is your table array? So your table array means where you are getting your answers from, right? So we want to get these grades, but where we want to get these answers from? So we're going to get it from this table, right? So this table will be my table array. So always remember, when you see the word array, it cannot refer to only one cell. You need to have a combination of few cells, right? That is array, right? So we are going to get our answers from here. This will be our table array. Now, column index number, the third one is column index number. Okay, now column index number refers to, in our answer table, in our table array, the answer that we are looking for is on which column, right? On which column. Now, this will be our column index number 1. This will be our column index number 2. Always remember, your column index number starts from where your table begins, not from here, It should be your table array here. Your table array starts from here. So this is column index number 1 and this is column index number 2. And then the final one is range lookup. Range lookup is whether you're looking for approximate match or exact match. Okay. Now, what does it means with approximate match and exact match? Normally, we represent this with 1 or 0. So, what does 1 means? 1 is for approximate match, and 0, we use 0 when we are looking for exact match. Okay. Now let's try this exact match first. Okay. For example, if I go and put here my formula, VLOOKUP equals to VLOOKUP. My lookup value will be the marks, comma. My table array will be this table. I'm going to get my answers from this table, right? So always remember, when you don't have a name range, okay, when you don't have a name range, you always need to lock the table. So how to lock? We can just simply press F4 on your keyboard. So you have F1, F2, F3 until F12, right? You just need to press F4 and you can see absolute reference. Absolute reference meaning this dollar sign will actually appear in front of the column and also the row, right? So we use absolute reference to lock the table, comma, column index number. The answer that I'm looking for from this table array is, this is column index number 1, this is column index number 2. So we are looking for the grades. Grades is in column index number 2, right? Comma, comma. Now, if let's say I use 0 for exact match, okay, 0, close bracket, enter. Let's see what will happen. If I drag this down, you see, for this tree, I won't be getting the answer. Why? You see, 0 is 0 in this table. Yes, we have 0 in this table. Straight away, Excel will identify this as E, right? 50, do we have 50 in this table? Yes, straight away you can get the answer D. Now, 65, do we have 65 in this table? No, Excel won't be able to identify 65 if it is not in this table, right? Same thing for 23 and 91. So the answer that you get is not available, right? It's not available. So if I go and change this formula a bit, rather than putting 0, let's say I go and put 1 and then enter. Let's see, if I drag this down, you can see Excel will automatically go and solve this problem. Why? When we use approximate match, Excel will automatically do this. E is basically, the range for E is 0 to 49, correct? Right? So the range for D is actually 50 to 59. And then for range for C will be 60 to 69, range for B is 70 to 79, and range for A is 80 to 100. So now when we use approximate match, what will happen is Excel will go through this table, and rather than looking at these numbers, Excel will actually go and look for the range. The range. So 65 is within this range, 60 to 69, right? And within this range, automatically it will return C. So 23 is within this range, you get E. And 91 is within this range, you get an A, right? So that's how the approximate and exact match works, right? But always remember, where do we use exact match? We use exact match when we are dealing with unique values. Okay, when I say unique values, your IC number is unique value, your employee ID is unique value. When you have a product, you will have the product product code, right? Product code can be a unique value, right? So unique value meaning you can't have a duplication, right? So when we have a unique value, then we use a exact match. Okay. Now let's do HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP, the only difference between VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP is one is looking for the column, another one is looking for the row. Okay. So we just need to change this. The column index number will now become as row index number. So you will have either column or row. So for HLOOKUP, we use row index number, right? Okay, now let's just go and replace this with our formula. So HLOOKUP, our lookup value again, based on what we are getting the answer. So based on the marks, we want to get the grades, right? So HLOOKUP, the lookup value will be the marks, comma. My table array will be this table. Again, we need to log if you don't have a name range for the table. Because why? We need to drag this down. If you don't lock this, what will happen? When you drag this down, F11 will become F12. K12 will become K13, right? So it will go down. So when it goes down, you won't get your answer. Okay, comma, row index number. See, just now it was column index number, but when you use HLOOKUP, it will ask for row index number. So this is my row index number 1. This is my row index number 2, right? So the answer that I'm looking for is in row index number 2, right? And are we looking for approximate or exact match? We are looking for approximate match because you can't use exact match here because this is not a unique value. So I put 1, close bracket, enter. And then double click, you will get your answers. Okay, now you need to understand the basic thing about VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP before we go into nested lookups, right? Now let's look at another example. Okay, this is an example of using item code. Item code. So always remember item code, employee ID, IC numbers, all these are exact match. Okay, so I want to get my details. Okay, where is my reference table? My reference table is basically in this. This is my reference table. So you might have 2 tables, so it will be difficult for you to go to your table and then come back here and then go back here. So most of the time it will be very difficult. So normally what I will do, this is what I will advise as well. Go to this view tab. We go to view tab. We go to new window. So just click once. So you will get a mirror copy of your same Excel workbook. Okay, same Excel workbook. So here I go back to view again, arrange all, and I want to arrange this vertically. And then click OK, and we have both our tables side by side. So actually, if you look at this workbook, the name is VLOOKUP example 2, right? So you will have copy 1, you will have copy 2, right? It's actually a mirror copy. So whatever that we do here, it will affect here. Whatever that you do in this table, it will also affect here, right? So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my table here. Okay, I'm just going to refer to this table to answer my questions here, right? Okay, so let's quickly put in the details. So VLOOKUP, this is my lookup value, comma, the first one, I'm going to use this table to get my answers, and F4 to lock it, comma, column index number. The first one, I'm looking for the description. Description is in column index number 2, and we are looking for exact match, right? Because again, item code, unique value. So we use 0. Close bracket, enter, and you will get your answers here, right? Now for price, we have our price here, right? So this is going to use another VLOOKUP as well. We're going to use another VLOOKUP as well. Again, it's have to be exact match. So rather than retyping the formula again, what I will do is I'll just go to this formula. We copy this, say until V. I just copy this formula until V. Don't include the equals to, right? Copy, escape, just go here, equals to, paste. The only thing that I need to change is my column index number. Rather than 2, this should be 3. Why? The price that I'm looking for is in column index number 1, 2, 3. Column number 3, right? Enter, and you can just drag this down. Okay, now for the total, basically what we do is equals to the price times with quantity, control enter, done, and for my total sales will be the sum, right? I'm just going to put alternate equals to and enter. So I'll get this total sum. So now for sales discount, we need to use VLOOKUP again, but our reference table will be discount table, right? So now let's just put the formula here, equals to VLOOKUP, my lookup value, comma, table array is this table. Do I need to log this? No. Why? Because we are not going to drag our answers anywhere, right? So I'm not going to drag my answers anywhere. So I don't have to log the table, right? So comma, this will be 2 again, comma. Now, do we have to use exact match or approximate match? You see, we have our total sales. This is our total sales table. We don't have to use exact match because this is not a unique value, right? So I can just put 1, close bracket, enter. So now it will tell me what is the discount percentage that I need to use, right? Here it says 10%. So you get 0.1. 0.1 equals to 10%, right? But this is not we want. What we want is, what is that amount? That 10% amount. What is that 10% amount, right? So we go back to the formula. Very simple. We just go to the end of this formula. Whatever answer that we get, we want Excel to times this back with the total sales. Enter, you will get your answer. So the last one, net payable, basically we take the total sales, you minus with your sales discount. Done. Okay. So this is a very simple one, as long as you understand how the VLOOKUP, basic VLOOKUP things works. This is how it works, right? So where to use exact match, where to use approximate match, right? So how to identify your table array, right? And where is your lookup value, right? All this, once you already know this, then it will be easier for you to go into nested VLOOKUP. Okay. Now let's go to our nested VLOOKUP. Okay, before we do nested VLOOKUP, let's do another example. I have a database here. Okay, this is my database, right? So here, what I want Excel to do is, when I go and key in any names, for example, let's say I go and key in John. You see John? Okay, let's say I key in John. When I enter, it should automatically populate John's department, employee ID, login ID, contact number, and email address. So where actually Excel need to extract these details from? Excel needs to extract all these details from our database, right? So it needs to be done from the database. So now again, how I'm going to do this? Okay, let's just type John. Okay, I'm just going to use John as my example. Okay, so let's use John. Okay, I go to my sheet 1. Okay, I go to department, and just going to put equals to VLOOKUP, right? So my lookup value is based on the names that we key in here. Okay, based on the names that we key in here, comma, we want Excel to go to this table. This is our table array. This table, comma, and look for column number what? We are looking for department, right? So earlier we are looking for department. So for department, I want Excel to look into column number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Column number 6, right? And are we looking for approximate match or an exact match, right? In this case, it's a name. Name, we need to use exact match, right? So I'm going to use 0 to get the exact match. So I want Excel to use John, the one that we key in just now, to go to this table and look into column number 6, right? And find out what is John's department. Okay, close bracket and enter. So you will get John's department as finance. Let's go and check. John is in finance. Okay, let's try for Mark. Okay, if I go and type Mark, M-A-R-K, it's showing as human resource, right? Let's check. Mark is from HR. That is correct, right? Okay, now let's go and find what is the employee ID. Okay, for John. Again, we go back to John. I want to go and find the employee ID for John. Okay, again, you just need to check. Employee ID is in column number 1. This is employee ID, column number 2. Okay, so employee ID will be column number 2. Right, so what I do, very simple, we just go and copy this formula. Again, we do the fastest way, we just copy the formula, escape, here equals to paste the formula. The only thing that you're going to change, right, is the column index number. Okay, column index number, this one will be 2. Enter. You get your employee ID. Now, you might be asking me this question. Why do I need to copy the formula, right? Why do I need to copy the formula when I can just drag down? No, when you drag down and when you copy and paste the formula is 2 different things, right? So if you look at this formula, you see E3, sheet B1, B3 to G10 and then 60, right? If you drag this down, what will happen is the E3 will change to E4, right? The sheet B3 to G10 will become B4 to G11, right? So when you drag down, you need to make sure that you lock certain cells. You lock certain cells, then you drag down, it makes sense. Otherwise, your answer will be totally different. But copying and pasting is basically you are just copying the formula, the whole formula, right? Whatever that is, you are just copying and pasting the formula, right? Okay, now for login ID, let's check. My login ID here is in column index number 5, right? So again, equals to paste. I just need to change this to 5 and enter. Okay, for contact number is in column number 3, column index number 3. So go here, equals to paste. My column index number is 3. And finally, for my email address is in column index number 4. So I just need to put equals to paste, and this is 4. Done. Okay, right. So if I go and check for Mark, is it showing the correct one? Yes. If I go and type Peter, yes, it is showing everything. But if let's say I go and key in something that is not in our database, okay, for example, let's say I go and key in my name, for example, okay, Gobinat, enter. See, if the name does not exist in this database, you will get not available, this error, right? So now what I want is, I don't want Excel to show me all these errors, right? So if the person's name is not in that table, I simply want Excel to replace that with not in database or no data available, right? So rather than coming out with NA, I want it to come up with data not available, right? So how you want to do that? Okay, let's go back to the formula. This is our formula to identify the name from that table, right? I just need to add one more thing in front, which is if NA, right? Because we are getting NA error, right? If I put if NA, the value will be, if there is a return for my VLOOKUP, it should come up with the answer. If it is not available, right? If it is not available and my answer is not available, I want it to come out as no data available. Close bracket and enter. So you will get, if the name is not available in that database, it will come out as no data available, right? So same thing I'm going to do for this, right? I'm going to do the same thing for all this. Copy, and then I just go here, we add if and a, right? Go here, comma, paste. See, you might be thinking, why am I putting this double inverted comma, right? Anything that is not a number, for Excel to identify it as a character, right? For Excel to identify this as a character, you need to put the double inverted commas. Okay, same thing here. If and a, go here, comma, paste, close bracket, enter. Right. Now you might be you might have this question: if and a and if error, is it the same thing? Right. So you, some of you might be thinking, if error and if and a. See, we have if error, if and a, right? Okay, let's try if error. Okay, I'm just gonna use if error, right? Comma, and if the value is error, I'm gonna just replace this with this. Close bracket, enter. It's the same thing. It's the same thing, right? It depends on the data that you are using. We can decide whether you want to use if error or if and a, right? Not all formulas you can use if and a, and not all the formulas you can use if error. Certain versions of Excel, the older versions, I'm using 365, right? The older versions, you do not have if error, if I'm not mistaken. If error, yeah, you might have only have if and a. Okay, again I'm gonna use if error, comma, double inverted comma here, double inverted comma here, close bracket, and enter. Okay, right now if I go and put the correct names, it will come out. If I go and put the names that is not in that table, it will come out as no data available. Right? Okay, now once you already understand this part, okay, once you already understand this part, now we can go into nested VLOOKUP. Okay, now what do we mean with nested lookup? Nested lookup meaning is, if you look at here, I have about 4 different tables. Okay, I have one table here, and then I have another table, and then I have the third table, and finally I have the last table here, right? Now, first thing you need to do, what you need to do is you need to identify how these tables are related, right? So you need to identify how these tables are related. That is step one. Okay, step one. Now, this table and this table, how are they related? They are related through the employee ID. So employee ID here and employee ID here. So you will get from the name. For example, I take the name, I can get the employee ID here in this table, and then using this employee ID, I can actually go and identify what is the login ID, right? Now, based on this login ID, I can go to this table and identify what is the contact number, right? Now, once I already know what is the contact number, I can take that contact number and go to this table to identify which department is that person from. Okay, so that's the first step. You need to know how are these tables related. Okay, now once you already know how these tables are related, let's go. Here it says we are going to use the name, okay, to find the department, login ID, employee ID, email address, and contact. Okay, let me just take this out. There is a, yeah, not here. Here we actually have a data validation. So I'm just going to clear everything. Okay. Now, for example, let's say I'm going to use Jack. Okay, I'm going to use Jack. So based on the name here, I want to get the department for Jack. Okay, I want to get the department for Jack. So what Excel will do, this is what we're going to use. This is what we're going to do. I'm going to use the name Jack to get the employee ID first. Okay. Now, once you already get the employee ID for Jack, we use this employee ID JCK11 to get the login ID, JACREA, to get the login ID. Once we already get the login ID, we use that login ID to get the contact number. Okay, to get the contact number. Now, once you already get the contact number, I'm going to use this contact number to get the department. Okay, this is how we're going to relate all this. Okay, now nested VLOOKUP, always remember it works inside out, not outside in. Okay, it should work from inside out. Okay, now this is how I'm going to do it. Okay, so I'm going to use VLOOKUP. Okay, VLOOKUP. The first thing that we are going to find is the employee ID. That's the first thing that we are going to find. Okay, so I'm going to use the name. I'm going to use the name, right? Comma. Okay, I'm going to use the name, comma, from this table, okay, comma, the column index number. So we are looking for the employee ID, right? We are looking for the employee ID, which is in column number 2, right? So this is column number 1, this is column number 2. So I'm just going to put column number 2. Now, are we looking for exact match or approximate match? Always remember employee ID, login ID, the name, all these are unique values, right? All these are unique values. So we always have to use 0 for exact match. Close bracket and enter. So now we already got the employee ID for this person, right? Now, using this employee ID, what I'm going to do now is, okay, using this employee ID, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the login ID. The login ID. So we go back to this formula. This formula, this VLOOKUP will actually find for us what is the employee ID, right? So now I'm going to use this formula, just add another VLOOKUP in front. Okay, another VLOOKUP in front. So we are telling Excel, once you already get the answer for this, the whole thing, right, that will be my lookup value. So answer for this is your employee ID, right? The employee ID, right? So once we already got this employee ID, so we're going to tell Excel, comma, use that employee ID to go to this table, comma, and look in column number 2, right, to get the login ID. Again, comma 0, close bracket and enter. So now we already got the login ID, right? We already got the login ID. Now we're going to use this login ID. I'm going to tell Excel to take this login ID and then go to this table, and look in column number 2, to get the contact number, right? So we just need to replace that here in this formula. Double click. I just need to add another VLOOKUP. Okay. Now the first VLOOKUP will help us to find the employee ID. Now second VLOOKUP will actually help us to find the login ID. Now this third VLOOKUP will actually help us to find the contact number, right? So comma, I want Excel to use that login ID and then go to this table, comma, look in column number 2, right? So using that login ID, Excel should refer to column number 2 to get my contact number, for that particular login ID. So comma, 0, close bracket and enter. So you will get the contact number, right? So you will get the contact number. So don't worry about all that, right? So you already get your contact number. Now finally, using this contact number, I want Excel to go to this table. You see this table now is horizontal. Yes, correct. It's no longer vertical. This is horizontal table. So I want Excel to use HLOOKUP. Using that contact number, I want Excel to go to this table and then look inside row number 2, to find what is the department for that particular contact number, right? So we just need to replace inside our formula. We go in front here. I use HLOOKUP, comma, my table array will be this table. Okay, because my table is horizontal, that is the reason we are using HLOOKUP, right? Comma, the answer that I'm looking for is in row number 2, comma, and we are looking for exact match. Close bracket, enter, and you will find the department of that person. Let's say I go and put John. Okay, let's check John's department. Okay, it says John is from marketing. Let's check John here. Okay, let's check John. Okay, John, the employee ID is JHN32. From JHN32, we know the login ID is JOH_CEN. From this JOH_CEN, we go here, JOH_CEN. This is the contact number. The contact number here is, the last 4 digits is 7683. So 7683 is here. It's under marketing. So is it correct? Yes, it is correct, right? Now, so for department, basically, if I just want to just copy this, okay, I'm just gonna copy this. Okay. Now for login ID, so login ID, how many VLOOKUPs we have to use? Okay, we're gonna use the name to get the employee ID. Once you already got this employee ID, we use that employee ID to go and find the login ID. So basically we need to use equals to VLOOKUP and another VLOOKUP. Okay, my first one is this value, comma, this table, comma 2, comma 0, close bracket, comma, this table, second table now, second table, comma 2, comma 0, close bracket, enter. And you will get your login ID. Now for employee ID, it's very straightforward. We just need to use one VLOOKUP equals to VLOOKUP. This is our lookup value, comma. This is my table array. Now, do I need to highlight the whole table? No need, right? You don't need to highlight the whole table. You just highlight where your datas are, the datas that you're looking for is, right? So in this case, datas that I'm looking for is only under name and employee ID. So I can just highlight these two, right? So comma 2, comma 0, close bracket, enter, you will get your employee ID. Again, email address is the same. VLOOKUP, this is my lookup value, comma, my table array. Okay, for this one, you need to highlight the whole table. Why? Your email address is here, which is in column index number 3, comma 0, close bracket, enter. Okay. Now for contact number, it is in this table, right? It's in this table. Now, how many VLOOKUPs do you need to use? Okay, if you think we need to use 3 VLOOKUPs, okay, 1, 2, and 3, you are correct. Or we can actually use one VLOOKUP. We can use one VLOOKUP to straight away get our contact number. How? Okay, if you use 3 VLOOKUPs, it's not wrong. It's still correct. But what I can also do is, you see, to get the contact number, you need to have the login ID, right? Which we already have it here. I already have the login ID here. So I can just use equals to VLOOKUP. I use my login ID as the lookup value, comma, and then the table array, comma, 2, comma, 0, close bracket, enter. Done. Okay, if let's say, let me just take this out. Okay, now let's say I type Peter. Okay, you can see Peter's details will come out here. Right, so if you type Mark's details will come out here, and Sarah. Okay. Why it's not coming out? Because why? You see, look at the spelling. I put a J extra. So you need to take out, you must not have a spelling mistake, right? This Sarah and this Sarah, you see there is a space behind, right? 2 different characters. For Excel, this is very, very sensitive, right? So now these are 2 different characters. One is without the space, another one is with the space, right? So 2 different characters. Now, rather than I go and type all these names one by one, what I want to do is I'm just going to create a drop-down list, right, to have all these names there, right? So we just need to go to this data tab, data validation. I change this to list, and my source will be all this. Click OK. Done. So you just need to click on the names and you can see everything else will work by itself. Okay. Now, I hope this helps, right? I hope this helps. Always remember the formula when you are using nested VLOOKUPs, right? When you are using nested VLOOKUP, it will not work from outside in, right? It works from inside out. Okay, so we have to work on this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. It always works from inside to outside, right? Okay, now what else you can use VLOOKUP for? Another example is I can actually create form control using VLOOKUP as well. See, this is all VLOOKUP. So you can look at the formulas, right? So you just need to go and click on this. You see the numbers will be changing, right? And if that person is a member, I just need to check this box, and you see automatically the member discount will be applied. If that person is not a member, no member discounts applied, right? So all this is formulas using VLOOKUPs, right? Now another example of form control is also this, where you can go and choose multiple items. You see, I'm using multiple items, right? And we can decide whether we want to give member discount or you don't want to give member discount, right? Okay, now form control is just an example. I will share more about this, how to use VLOOKUPs in other examples, right? When we meet on another session, right? Okay, Haziq, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the session, right? And I pass it over to Haziq.
Okay, Dr. Gobi, I think we have one question from
Yes.
Chris NSP. Yeah, how to combine all the four data table into one summary table?
Okay. How to combine all the state data table into one summary table? Yes, we can. We use pivot table. We can combine all these tables using pivot table. We use data modeling, create the relation, because the relationship is already there, right? So when you want to combine tables to create one pivot table, you need to create the relationship. Since the relationship is already there, you can simply just combine everything using pivot table. That will be much more easier.
Okay. I think we only have one question for today. Okay, so far we have a good audience, good numbers. I think okay, for the session for the pivot table, you have to join our public training lah, Shoba. Alright, so thank you so much, Dr. Gobi, for the insightful presentation, and thank you everyone for joining Lunch and Learn today session today. For your information, we will be having public training Microsoft Excel Intermediate and Advanced level on 22nd and 23rd of September. Don't forget to follow our social platform for the latest information on our program. All right. Okay. So basically, we have another one question. What? So if our table is huge.
Okay. What if your table array is huge, right? My advice is, before you do your pivot table, before you do your VLOOKUP, two things you can do. One is you can use pivot table to summarize your table, right? So that the function of pivot table is basically to summarize, to analyze, and all this, right? So you can actually convert this into pivot table, right? So when you convert to pivot table, always remember, when you convert a table into pivot table, right, and then when you click on each of the cells, the cell will show as get pivot data, right? So you need to change it to cell values. Okay, there is an option in pivot table, you can change it to cell values. Then once that is done, then you use your VLOOKUP. Or rather than using VLOOKUP, you can also use index and match. It depends on what you're looking for, right? You can also use index and match. So I hope that helps.
Yes. Like I said, like if you want more information, you join our public training lah on next September. Alright. So
Yes.
if you have any question regarding our program and our courses, you can contact us through the contact information in the ticker below. With that, happy lunch and thank you. I'll see you again. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Gobi.
Enjoy your lunch, everyone. Thank you, Haziq, and everyone. Have a great day.